What is good? Osiris here, stuck in the middle. Thank you for joining. In one of my recent videos, I talked about silence, and the silence was deafening after Dr. Peter McCullough had an amazing podcast interview with Joe Rogan. The lack of response was really telling, I would say. But we've got someone who's stepping up to the plate. We've got Z-Dog MD. Sam Harris tweets, "For anyone who got brain damage watching Dr. Peter McCullough on the Joe Rogan podcast, here is the antidote. Well done, Z-Dog MD." Okay, so it caught my attention because it was the first kind of big retort to the podcast, and I'm all here for it. I want the discussion. Someone who I respect a lot on Twitter, Mel, said, "I listened to about 20 minutes of the hour-long video. Predictably, it's heavy on personal attacks, heavy on propaganda, asks you to simply trust what you've been told and don't believe your lying eyes." So I trust her more than Sam Harris, without question, just from the interactions I've had with her on Twitter. But it still made me more interested, like, okay, so Sam Harris is like, ooh, this is the antidote. Ooh, did you get brain damage from the Peter McCullough interview? And she's like, it's gunk. She didn't even make it past 20 minutes. So does anybody follow Libs of TikTok? The woman that runs the account will sometimes say, I had to watch this video. It was so cringe. Now you have to see it too.
Warning, this is gonna trigger the Marshmallow Mafia. I'm dreaming of a world without white privilege.
No, I'm not going to do that. So I'm just going to give you an overview. I'll give you a link if you want to watch it. It was brutal. I listened to every second of the Z-Dog response to Peter McCullough, and it was tough to listen to because it was brutal. A lot of smug arrogance.
Baylor. I was the deputy chief of internal medicine at Stanford for a 2-year period. I know what that means. That means you go to meetings. You get elected and you go to meetings. That's all it means.
These intellectuals that feel like it's just my impression. So I could be completely wrong. I don't know what's in Z-Dog's head. It's just my impression was dripping with arrogance. Unbelievable stuff. So I'm not going to put you through a whole breakdown of it, which I was thinking about doing, but here's the big picture of it. He was going to do this whole grandiose retort, and the areas where he disagreed with Peter McCullough were more minor areas and a lot of opinion. Z-Dog MD did not come in this video with any facts or many at all that I could see. You know, he actually agreed with him a lot.
He says there are these 4 things that lead you to mass groupthink. 1 is prolonged isolation, aka lockdowns. 2 is taking away things from people, whether it's economic, whether it's rights, whatever it is. 3 is constant anxiety and fear that's promoted publicly. And 4 is a single then solution offered by an authority like government, aka vaccinations. Okay. This is interesting because during this pandemic, yes, this has happened. We have isolated people, we've destroyed social fabric, we've created fear, and we've then offered a government messaging that's garbage messaging, argument. And he talks about the effects of mandates on freedom and that kind of thing. And I agree, I think mandates are not a good idea. I think they create psychological reactance and resistance, and they're not necessary if you just are honest with the public, which we have not been. It's not hand sanitizers. This isn't spread on surfaces. I agree. We thought it was early on, and we realized we were wrong. And then he says, mask data is kind of equivocal. I agree. I'm not arguing with that. I think he's right. When you're talking about something like this is where the mainstream media is off its rocker. When CNN calls it horse dewormer and all of that, it does 2 things. It shames people that have tried to take it because they believe these experts, these experts that are talking about it. But the second thing is it stigmatizes what is a human drug with a tremendous impact around the world for parasites, even a randomized trial. When you're calling this thing horse dewormer in the media, like, oh, I'm going to enroll for that trial. I want to be in a horse dewormer trial. The media sucks, you guys. They're really all about getting, clicks and ad revenue and so on. Although you're right, hospitals get paid for people filling beds. So there is that. You do need to fix that incentive structure, but that's a long-term structural issue. And then the fourth pillar is vaccination. So he even says it's vaccination. And at this point, he says, there is some moderate benefit to preventing severe disease with vaccination. Then he backtracks on some of that later, but I'm glad he said that. Does natural infection prevent a lot of reinfection? Yes, and there's lots of data around that. So why not we take that into account, especially when you're talking about mandates, compelling people to get vaccines or lose their job or can't go to school or whatever. Well, but I got COVID. Maybe I should just get one dose of an mRNA vaccine. They make no concessions. Immunocompromised people have the least benefit from vaccines, and they're the ones that are most important to protect. Okay, this is important. So he's right. Then he says obesity is a problem. I agree. Coronavirus than non-obese. And I think there's something to this. I think he's right. I think we should be talking more about prevention instead of early therapeutics. We'd be talking about lifestyle modification, eating less junk food, getting up and walking, opening schools, taking masks off everywhere so that we can walk and get moving.
He actually agreed with him a lot. Dr. McCullough put up a challenge. He put up a $2 million challenge. He said, no medical professional or government official has accepted the $2 million challenge that Steve Kirsch has offered to discuss the V safety efficacy. Why not? I don't know. They said they would put up $2 million to debate. You would think somebody might want to take that, Z-Dog. Or even if you didn't want to do that, you could have offered him to have him on your show. And if he declined, you could even say, hey, he declined. This is a standard. What Z-Dog did here and what Sam Harris does, this is a standard tactic. This is from people who believe that they are intellectually superior, and they might be. I would probably bet he's intellectually superior to me, but that doesn't mean you're more genuine. It doesn't mean that you have more common sense, and it doesn't mean you're not more corrupted as well.
Is something called fake experts. So fake experts are or false authority, right? Where you're saying, oh, look, this guy says this, so therefore it's true. And it turns out the guy either doesn't have the authority to say this, or he's a fringe position, or she's a fringe position. So kind of trotting out these fake experts to support a position. And they're often a fringe minority when there's a bigger consensus around something else.
So all that intelligence means nothing. Like all that superpower you have means nothing if you use it for nefarious purposes. Refusing to debate, taking sniper shots at Dr. McCullough. You could have him on your show. Instead of debating, you smear, you mischaracterize people. It's bad faith. And you don't put the people first. So if you're going to retort Peter McCullough, do it in a way that can reach common people, not like you're trying to protect your intellectual establishment from an attack from a rogue doctor. That's what it came across as. Sam Harris is the one that posted it. This is the same guy that had you hating Trump and voting for Biden, Sam Harris, and then he had to walk that back because objectively Joe Biden is a mess. Okay, so he had to walk that back. I guarantee if Sam tested positive for this thing, he'd run every early treatment possible that's being denied to others. The same one he's smearing with who have questions. Well, meanwhile, you're on your your third, fourth, fifth jab. Just so many jabs we've lost count. You know that guy. Did you hear about that guy overseas that had 10 jabs in one day? I'm going to end with this. Z-Dog did an hour-long video to basically say, I largely agree with Dr. McCullough, but he makes me uncomfortable politically.
When Peter McCullough says, oh, I'm in AAPS is a conservative physician organization, so it has a clear political bias. It has political activities. Yes.
You know what? There's not much less I couldn't care less about, probably other than who Kim Kardashian is dating, Z-Dog MD. There's not much I couldn't care less about than you feeling uncomfortable politically.
AAPS is a conservative physician organization.
Let me know what you think. Thanks a lot. Take care.